Now, our next question is from Claire Kelly, and it's again on the subject of housing.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is, what mix of housing, social, private, rented or owned, should Hackney be aiming for to maintain sustainable communities, and how would you deliver this?
Okay, it's a very good question. We've sort of covered some of this in an earlier question, but I still think we can go a bit deeper into it. And I'd like to do that starting with Robbie. It's the how bit that particularly interests me. How do you get to where, we think we ought to be?
It's really hard. It costs money, and the first thing this current government did was completely slash the housing budget. It costs about £60,000 to subsidise, the cost of going into a social home. And so if you think about how much that budget's been cut, it's really, really hard. I think kind of what councils can do is they can kind of utilise their land a lot more. So I think what one of the things that Hackney's doing at the moment is selling some of their land and putting housing on it and trying to be a bit more creative about how much you put on that land. It does kind of raise, that basically means you're kind of densifying housing, and people don't like that. But that's the only way that, without any money from central government coming in, that's the only way that you can afford to create affordable, social, genuinely affordable new homes. And so it's, again, kind of back into that kind of tough compromises kind of area. If we want to ensure there's that good mix for people, we're going to need to, densify the homes and sell off some land.
What would you say about the Woodbury Down redevelopment that's gone on, which some people are extremely angry about and other people think is marvellous?
I'm probably somewhere in the middle, as I am on most issues. I think Woodbury Down, it terrifies me that you can buy a 3-bedroom flat in Woodbury Down for over £1 million. I think anyone who's known Woodbury Down over the years finds that abhorrent. At the same time, it was an estate that had been left to rot. I think it was probably unsustainable, and I can understand why the council took the approach they did. I think it just brings home what a mess housing is in London, and how poor the tools for councils are to deal with it.
Okay. Could I just ask quickly, perhaps both of the panellists to my left, on the particular point about renting and thinking about renting privately? I mean, in these conversations that go on about, what do we need most of and what sort of blend do we need, I think most people agree that it would be better if people who rented privately were more secure. But is it thinking about teachers, for example, or maybe people in the legal profession who are not as high flying as you are yet, often for people like that, private renting is a good thing. I mean, what would you like to see in terms of your own particular world world of work that you operate in? What do you think you need to see more of in this borough?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was very lucky as a young teacher in a London borough. There were specific rented flats available for teachers. You couldn't have them forever, but it gave you a good start. I would still welcome some sort of initiative like that. But, I mean, there are so many demands, but, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It was touched upon earlier, just affordable intermediary housing. And that's pretty much the answer. Just housing that's adequate to allow people that are in the infancy of their profession or working lives to live. Okay. And that's pretty much it. But the difficulty is reconciling social housing and the private housing market. So it's just finding how you can keep everyone happy. And unfortunately, when you try to do that, nobody's happy. So it's a very difficult question to address.
Okay. Because there is pressure on, although there's a lot of social housing in this borough, there's also a lot of pressure on a lot of people living in it. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this with from your work with young people, Melissa.
I think for me the key word is security. So whatever mix we have, there has to be a degree of security. You can't plan for the future if you're anxious about the basic shelter that you have over your head. So, and that also then means that we have to look at renting and the laws that protect renters as well.
Okay.
But I think also it's starting to get into the realm where we have to think beyond Hackney. Hackney, as much as I would love a free republic of Hackney, we're connected to London, we're connected to this economy of the UK, to a national government, and we're very much connected to internationally as a global financial centre, what's happening with the international market. So that's all affecting the housing market, as we know, in the city and in Hackney itself.
Thank you. Okay, Jules, now I'm going to ask you to be very, very succinct here. I wonder if you could come up with, I don't know, if you had a wish list of things that you were able to control or do in this borough. I don't know, name me the top 3 items on it. What would you like to be able to do more of?
Okay, I can take a stab at 3, but this is coming from someone who runs a borough that is firmly in the top 10 home builders on any tenure. Private to help subsidise the social and affordable and intermediate and all the rest. Recently we were about 3rd in the country with like Cornwall #1, and it's only now that places that should be higher than us because they're 6 times the size of us, like Birmingham, are now leapfrogging us. But with that in mind, I mean, ending right to buy, that has seen 1/3 of our housing stock come out of the social sector. We still have 23,000 tenanted properties, and probably about the same again in the housing, within housing association, RSL sector. But increasingly, their rents are being flipped to affordable rents. So I'd want to see that, as in 80% of market. I'd want to see that stopped, and then kept at what their intention actually was to be, which was at social rent. I mean, they are feeling forced into doing that because they're no longer getting housing, or it's not worth their while getting housing grant from the GLA, from central government. But Melissa's absolutely right. It's we are not an island. There are patches of London that do not build any housing. They do not want any housing of any kind. They certainly don't want social housing, but they don't want even private housing encroaching on their golf courses in South London. And this is a real problem because, you know, if Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea stopped placing their homeless people in Hackney properties, we would be able to house all of Hackney's homeless people within Hackney instead of having to go to Haringey and out to Redbridge and beyond on certain nights of the week when there is absolutely nowhere to locate families other than hotels.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we go back to Claire for her response to those
Just a quick
comments?
question. Why can't we stop these other boroughs housing their homeless people in our accommodation?
Oh, it's not
Jules.
it's not the borough's accommodation. It is private landlords, and offering private rents, and those boroughs will come in and buy up those rents and outbid other boroughs. So they're actively placing, and organisations that offer temporary accommodation, they'll offer it to Hackney, yes, but they'll offer it to other boroughs as well, and they're coming in and they take up those places.
So Westminster might say, well, we can't give you a home of our own, but we've got a relationship with a private landlord in Hackney or Newham or wherever. Would you like to go and live there? I mean, that's...
Yeah, and it's covered off by housing.
That goes on all the time.
Housing benefit. Billions upon billions in this country is poured into housing benefit, and only a fraction of that amount is actually put into building in bricks and mortar homes for those people.
Thanks very much. Now, I'm not going to go back to the audience now because we need to speed up. There's some people down here holding up cards saying, get on with it. So I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to do that.